My background is in corporate, particularly in the field of human resources and corporate affairs, which is where I've kind of plied my trade over the last 20 years. I've worked for 3 multinationals in technology space, in automotive manufacturing, as well as in the newspaper publishing space. The one thing that is in common to where I am is that it's really been about human capital development. I've always been interested in working with people, gaining the best out of people, empowering people. And throughout that journey, I'm now finding myself in a space where the focus of Rays of Hope, although it's not a corporate, is really at its core about developing people. Totally different space in that corporate is very structured. All the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. In the non-profit space, you might say that it's a bit more fluid, but the stakes are higher. You're dealing with people's lives. You are measured not so much on the bottom line impact, but rather on the lives touched. So a decision I take has a potential to impact somebody's life in Alexandra. How do I do that to the best of my ability? I cannot afford to be flippant in what I do. Bringing the skills that I've learned over the last 20 years is quite important, so that there is structure, so that there is system, so that there is order. But ultimately, day by day, whose life am I touching today? Whose life am I touching tomorrow? That is what matters. That is what has the potential to leave a legacy. I would say, Sam, it's more of a renewed focus. Essentially, if you look at the history of Rays of Hope, for over 32 years, when Rays of Hope started, it was with a Saturday school called Rose Act, where the focus was really to support high school students on Saturdays, particularly in the areas of maths and English, which are quite critical in our education system. And through that, programs have kind of grown around that nucleus. Now, because Rays of Hope has been responsive to what happens in the community of Alexandra, during the 2019 pandemic, there was an opportunity for funds and resources to be funneled through Rays of Hope into the Alexandra community, and I must add, in collaboration with other organizations. It's not something that we did on our own. Now, that was good, but it was for that time of the pandemic, that time of a crisis point in the lives of South Africa and the world. Rays of Hope was seen as an organization that provides food parcels and that kind of immediate support. However, we are more than that. Now, we have streamlined our focus into revisiting at the core who we are as Rays of Hope. Our areas of intervention are primarily around learning and development through the different education-related programs that we offer from the ECD Center, where experts tell us that the first 1,000 days in a child's life are quite critical. So they come through, they are exposed to our curriculum, our learning, and we pair that with the psychosocial support through our army of social workers that we have, who look at the children in our programs, and then we say it's one thing for a child to be in our ECD center, but that same child at the end of the day goes back home to Alexandra, and they are in an environment that might have an impact, and usually does, on the life of the child. So now our focus is on what we call the whole child model, which means that we're not just looking at the one child in our ECD center. We're saying that child has got parents, that child has got siblings. How do we support? If we find that there is, for instance, alcoholism in the family, we intervene through our social services. If we find that there's gender-based violence within the child's environment, we intervene. And we also have support for the other siblings, for instance, who may be part of our higher grades, for instance, our homework class programs that children children come from schools in Alexandra, and they come and they get support where we're supplementing what they are learning, and then we move on to the higher grades where we still have our Saturday school that I mentioned earlier, where we're focusing on maths and English, and now we've added science as well. So effectively, we are supporting the whole child, which means that in an African sense, where we have the saying that it takes a village to raise a child, we acknowledge that the child is not a standalone entity. How do we plug into that ecosystem that the child finds itself in and ensure that the entire family is benefiting from the programs that we deliver to the community and not just children in isolation? This streamlined focus, we believe, is a differentiator because it tells potential funders and existing funders that we are streamlined, we are focused, but we are also not trying to solve all the problems in the Alexandra community because we cannot do that. But those areas where we can intervene, we can give 110%.